All right. Well, good evening, everyone. Hopefully, you're having a good day or that you've had a good day. Welcome to our clearing question and answer session. My name's Ashley. I'm a first year PhD student at Loughborough, studying under the Department of Aeronautical and Automotive Engineering. So I've been at Loughborough for a really long time and have some experience with clearing and contact centers, that sort of thing. Rebecca?
Hi everyone, I'm Rebecca. I'm going into my third year at Loughborough and I study English. And I came to Loughborough through clearing. So hopefully I can answer any questions that you've got relating to student life or anything random that might be more student related.
And my name's Ingrid. I work at the Student Accommodation Centre. So I work forward with all of the students, letting you know about a little bit more about accommodation and what we go and have here in a customer services role.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. So like we said, well, I don't know, we haven't really said yet, the comment section is open to any questions that you might have. So feel free to pop them in there and we'll be happy to answer anything that is on your mind when it comes to kind of results day and clearing and that sort of thing. But I figure we may as well just sort of start with Rebecca, if you don't mind, just sort of giving us a little bit of an idea of what it was like for you coming through clearing to Loughborough.
Yeah, so for me, it was maybe slightly different because I'd just come off the back of a gap year and I'd decided that I completely changed where I wanted to go to uni. I think with COVID, everything like that, I'd kind of rethought my whole plan. So I'd looked at which courses were available through clearing and I loved like Loughborough's balance of like sport, but also everything else that there's to offer there. So it seemed like a really good choice for me. So it was maybe a tad less stressful than people receiving results on the day, but I can relate with the stress of clearing, so don't worry. But so yeah, but there was so much less to be stressed about than I thought, because I rang up and the lady was lovely and I got an offer through clearing and then just accepted it through UCAS. So that was kind of then me starting on my Loughborough journey. So then I think it worked out fine. So that's also good too. So I've got good things to say.
Yeah, awesome. So in terms of when you actually get involved with, well, when it comes up to the run up to results day, people will go into school or you'll either hear what your results are, that sort of thing. And if things obviously don't go to plan necessarily, or maybe you do better than you expected, you can obviously come through clearing and adjustment as well. Clearing is sort of similar but different across all universities. At Loughborough, we have a phone line that you can access. So universities will have their own phone number that you can contact and reach out to us at any point during, I think it's over 2 days. Ring up, chat to some of the students and staff that are working at the contact center, and then get help. Ringing in the morning, I believe I've checked to make sure that I'm saying the right time. The phone lines at Loughborough open at 8 o'clock in the morning. I don't know, Rebecca, or if anybody else has any tips and tricks when it comes to clearing, but I think I always say just plan for anything, and so long as you're prepared, then hopefully you won't need them. So just making sure that you're starting to have a look at different universities that you might be interested in. If you notice that that different, I guess, courses come up or different things that you might be interested in, and just make sure that you have phone numbers and know what time call centers open in the morning so that you can be some of the first people to come in as well is really helpful. In terms of accommodation, Ingrid, if you don't mind, so how does that work, if you can give us a bit of insight into it?
So in terms of accommodation, it really is a case of when it comes to your actual results day, when it comes to actually applying through the clearing, first things first, go through the clearing process. Don't worry about accommodation. So the accommodation system won't go and open to apply for until the 22nd of August. So you've got a little bit of time. Once you've kind of adjusted to the whole going through clearing, get that out of the way, then you can think, right, accommodation. So it opens at 10 a.m. on the 22nd of August. What you basically go and do is you work for a preferencing system. So at 10 a.m., you'll register an account with us, you log in. Once you're logged into that account, you'll be able to make 3 preferences. They're all based on catering type. So we have self-catered and catered halls here. The location on campus, and the room type. So whether it's, say, standard rooms where you'll have a wash hand basin in your room, or whether it's, say, an ensuite room. So you'll basically make 3 preferences and then send them off to us, and we do the rest. So we'll go and give you an offer in the coming few weeks. It can take a little while to process through all of them, so don't worry, but we will be in contact with you. And then you'll go and basically receive an accommodation offer. It is based on availability, but if you are going through clearing, you also get a guarantee of accommodation. So you will have an offer no matter what for a halls. We can't guarantee what halls, but you will get accommodation offer. So you'll be able to stay with us on campus.
That's really good as well, because obviously that's something that Loughborough does. I don't know what all universities do, but that's a brilliant bonus. You know, even if you're coming through clearing, you get those sort of perks. What hall did you, or I mean, not hall specifically, but were you catered or self-catered, or were you not in halls on campus, Rebecca?
So I, like Ingrid said, got an offer. Like I'd put down my preference, and for me, it was important to have an ensuite just so I had my own space whilst I settled into uni. And I got offered catered, so I was offered Faraday. And I was a bit apprehensive about the catered side, as I think a lot of students are. And it's funny looking back because I really didn't have anything to worry about food wise, because there's enough option that I think everyone can find stuff that they like in there. And it's all fine. It is nice. It's like that's not like something to worry about. So, and it was nice because I got to cater for myself at the weekends as well. And it was nice also being on campus. So I think actually like it all worked out fine. And then in my second year, I opted to go back onto campus, but into Robert Bakewell. So that was self-catered. So I've experienced both sides, and both are completely fine. So
Yeah, I was the same. I was catered when I was on campus, and I absolutely loved it. I just thought it was brilliant that I didn't have to worry about like the cooking, the cleaning. It's really nice and social as well. You know, you can just have
I think
dinner.
that's something that everyone goes and says when it comes to the catering side of things. I know a lot of people go and worry. We always say when it comes to your accommodation, obviously you're filling out some preferences.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at those 3 preferences, just make sure you give it a bit of versatility. So don't put the same preference like 3 times over, because it's always good to go and think, well, what kind of things do I want from my accommodation? What are kind of my priorities? So like yourself said, Rebecca said, she quite wanted an ensuite. So she was reasonably flexible with all the other aspects of things. If you particularly want catered, you can do that as well.
Yeah, no, I absolutely loved being on campus as well, Rebecca, as you said. Like, it's just so convenient, and it's really nice to just be on campus with other people. It's really easy to get to lectures. I think that's one of the best things about Loughborough, and it was one of the main reasons why I chose Loughborough, was just the fact that you've got everything so close by on a campus. You can basically roll out of bed and end up in your lectures, and yeah, I've really enjoyed my time here. So going back towards clearing, is there anything different about your university experience just because you go through clearing? I don't know, Rebecca, if you found anything. Just one of the questions that we've got written down.
yeah, no, if I'm honest, I think it's exactly the same. And it's nice actually, because when I was applying, it was important for me, if I was going to go through clearing, to at least take the stress away of having guaranteed accommodation. So that was a lot of the reason why I thought Loughborough was a good fit, like to go through clearing, because otherwise it might be a bit more stressful. So like, but like because you still get treated then as a Loughborough student. Like I remember they sent out that year like golden tickets, and I still got a golden ticket in the post. Like I was still treated as if I was a Loughborough student. So, and then when I got to university, like no one knows who's come through clearing and who hasn't. So you're all treated exactly the same. So my experience didn't differ just because I went through clearing.
Yeah, it's exactly that, because I think unless you offer up the information, or if somebody asks about clearing, you wouldn't necessarily know. So we've had a question in the comments. George has written, will anyone in halls or my lectures know that I've applied to clearing? We've just had that one. Wait a minute. We just answered that question. So we'll just switch on to the second one that we've just had from Chris. So this is a question about, as an international student, do I need to worry about the process of getting my visa done in time? How fast can I get CAS for a visa process after clearing admissions? So what I would say is that that's a great question for the international admissions team. what they'll do is they'll contact you and we'll get in touch with them with the whole, working through that process. If you have any extra questions, though, for the international team with that specifically, you can feel free to send them an email as well. On the website is always a great option. You should be able to find it under the international students section. So yeah, don't worry. There's lots of people who are there that can help you and answer your questions. Moving on to student support. How about that? So in terms of help, I mean, I can answer this question, but Rebecca, you might have some personal experience, or Ingrid might have some experience about getting help with anything on campus. In terms of like, have you found support with your course or the lectures or kind of anything even outside? What's been your experience with sort of the support strands that we have here on campus?
I think from my side of it, like within the English course, and I think this is the same for most courses at Loughborough, if not all of them, you get allocated a personal tutor who's one of your like faculty staff who you'll meet with. Kind of, they'll set up meeting times, but you can ask for a meeting or a one-to-one if you want. And I found that really helpful because especially in my first year, which was very like COVID focused and with lockdowns and everything, like my personal tutor was the one that I could always go to and chat to if ever I was a bit stressed about the work or how to complete it. And obviously without COVID now, I've like felt that I've needed less of that support because we've had more in-person stuff, which is amazing. So from my point of view, the support has been amazing. And I think especially in a time like COVID when it was harder, I think that's when cracks show, if there are any. And there was nothing bad at all. So I think that for me was a really positive experience because I was quite worried, especially the stuff you see on the news about how other universities are treating their students, that actually we were treated really well. And I think that's carried through into kind of more of a post-COVID time at uni where everything's still exactly the same and the support's always there if we need it.
Yeah, I think like you say, when it comes to things carrying over from COVID, stuff like recorded lectures is still a thing. That was, what Loughborough did was kind of take everything that they learned from COVID and things that worked really well, like recording lectures so that people can watch them again later, and the things that people didn't like so much. So like not having anything in person, a lot of students complained. They said that we want to be in person, get us back into a lecture hall. So it's really great that Loughborough's responded the way that they have to do a sort of hybrid mode that you get that happens. All lectures still happen in person, but it just means that if you go to your lectures and you maybe missed something or something wasn't quite clear, you're able to rewatch them later, which is really helpful, especially when it comes to revision and stuff like that. Lee has asked what the phone number is. I think we are working on it. I think I have it as well, possibly. But yes, it will be on the Loughborough Clearing website, but we are hopefully working on getting it, possibly. Emily has asked, how long do you have to accept a clearing offer? Now, that is a good question that I think, I don't want to say the wrong thing. I know it's several days as far as I'm aware, or it's 2 days. Wait a minute, I should be able to find it on the website. I don't know if anybody knows. Getting a response. Yeah, so basically when in terms of like getting how long you have, it's not like a really, it's not like you have 2 hours to make a decision. It differs from university to university. But regardless, if you ring up Loughborough, they'll tell you over the phone, because obviously the staff will be fully briefed and they'll be able to help you with that information. It's possible that you might find it on our clearing website as well. We're just trying to multitask and host this at the same time, so it's a little bit hard. But yeah, so we've got some more question, or another question that's come in. So James has asked, Loughborough is my firm choice for university, but hypothetically, if I don't manage to meet the grades of my offer, would my first step be to call up on results day and try to get in via clearing? So I don't know if anybody wants to take that question. I've worked the contact center for several years, so I sort of know this situation. So I'll take it for now, but if anybody wants to add anything, please feel free. So the way that university sort of stuff works is obviously the universities will get your results way before you do. So I think they're going to be coming in over the weekend or something like that. And the university sifts through all the offers that they have. And they'll look at offers for different courses. This is any university across the country, and they'll decide what people that they're going to be able to let in based off of their results. So when it comes to not getting into Loughborough as your firm choice, you will have gone through for the specific course that you applied.
One second. I think we've just had audio problems. So it's just a case of, I'd say when it comes down to it, the best thing to go and do is just have a look online. All the information usually comes out on clearing online, and it will come out in a slow process. So just always check the website. It's the best thing to go and do when it comes down to it. You'll get all the information about the process there.
Sorry, I just had a problem with my computer. But yeah, so just always keep an eye on the courses that are coming up, which courses are still in clearing. Keep an eye on the university's specific websites as well, because those update really quickly, and that's how you'll be able to get your most kind of speedy information about the courses that we have on offer. Sorry about that. So I don't think we have anything new in yet. No. So we'll just keep going with the sort of other topics of discussion that we have. Ingrid, in terms of support within halls, what sort of stuff, well, I guess the question that I'm trying to ask is like, what makes accommodation at Loughborough special, and why is it that people should want to come here and live on campus with us?
So it's usually my favorite question to go and answer when it comes to usually when I'm doing the open days and stuff, because it's a funny thing about people may hear about this thing that they quote it now when you go to Loughborough as the Loughborough experience.
Yeah.
But it's a little bit different. The way that kind of we work here in terms of halls of residence is that every hall is kind of its own little community. So all your halls on campus, there are 16 halls, undergraduate halls, 7 of them are catered, 9 of them are self-catered. And then of each of the different halls, they each have like their own little community. So when you go and come to Loughborough, you don't kind of just live in your hall. We go and say you kind of join your hall, you join your whole family. So you'll basically pay subs for the year. And then what you go and do is you have events that go on throughout the year. You'll do different things within your hall. So it is kind of, it gives you a different aspect of social life. You won't just go and have, say, the societies that you join. You'll have the things that are arranged by your hall committees. So every hall has it. So it doesn't matter which hall you pick. All of the halls will have this. They have a hall chair, and they have a range of committee, and they're all elected by the students, and they'll basically run all your freshers events. They'll run events throughout the year. Like they do punch parties, they do charity events, they do a winter ball and a summer ball. I'm sure Ashley and Rebecca could both go and tell you about their winter and summer ball and the amazing time they probably had at them when they were in halls of residence. And so it gives you kind of a different thing to go and have a look at throughout the year. And kind of get involved in. So if you like kind of the social aspect of things, there's all of those. And then you do also have wardens. So in terms of support, you may go and worry you're away from home for the first time. It can be a little bit nerve-wracking at first. So every hall also has a warden, and the warden will basically be there to go and help you out and make sure that if you do have any problems, like you've gone and had a falling out with your friends or something like that, that they can go and chat to you about it and make sure you're all okay.
Oh, it's really fab. Yeah, I think I had a really brilliant experience with wardens and the warden teams and that when I was in the halls. It's just really great to have that sort of extra support. They're not there to be your parents per se. They're not like watching everything that you do or judging you or anything like that. But they're just a great group of people to have access to if you ever need any additional help. So shifting gears slightly, just to talk about sort of university life, but outside of the academic side. Rebecca, have you had a job while you were here at Loughborough? And I'll just point out that the clearing contact number, the phone number, has just been put in the rolling bar at the bottom. So make sure that you note that down, but it's also available on the website.
Yeah, like for me personally, so my first year I did online tutoring because I'd done that in my gap year, and so I carried on tutoring English, which was really nice because that was a bit more flexible, so I could put it around my studies a bit better. And then in my second year, I got accepted as a student ambassador, so that was really fun because you get to work with prospective students, you get to like show people around the university, you get to kind of like sing its praises, and that's really nice. So that's a really lovely kind of opportunity that I've had. But like I just said, like a lot of people I know as well also have part-time jobs, so it's very reasonable to balance other things alongside your studies, and I think that's really important for a lot of students, especially now. So I think that's really nice that Loughborough kind of allows you enough balance with everything to be able to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I knew friends who like worked at Tesco or some grocery store or whatever back home, and then they got transferred close by so that they can still do that from here. Coffee shops, that sort of thing is the same way. There's also loads of like bar work and restaurant work that you can get in town if you want that as well. But then we have a range of different things that you can do here on campus. So as Rebecca said, we can be student ambassadors, which is something that I do as well, for your department, for the university. But then also working at the Students' Union, so doing bar work at the Students' Union or security, like being a security guard on nights out, that sort of thing. There's loads of different ways that you can get jobs and earn some extra money if you want to. And like Rebecca said, it's still easy to fit around your schedule because at the end of the day, you're the one that kind of monitors the spare time that you have around your lectures. And if you can fit work into that, it's really, really great. And then you can have some extra spending money. So we have a question from Jessica in the comments. She has said, do students that don't excel at sport usually settle okay and find their group of people? So this is actually a really great question because, of course, Loughborough is super well known for our sport. We keep banging on about it, especially when the Commonwealth Games has just happened. If we were a country, we would have ranked 6th, which is really cool. But I don't know what you do, Rebecca. There's lots of people at Loughborough that don't do sport, like don't even touch the gym. There's so many other things that you can do as well within the Students' Union. There's all sorts of societies and different sections that you can get involved with that don't include sport. So you can raise money for charities and you can do volunteering work for the local community, that sort of thing. And you can do all that without having to have any interest in sport. I don't know what your experience has been like, Rebecca.
Like that question was my exact fear before I came to Loughborough, actually, so I can relate. But like I think for me, because I was kind of like I enjoyed sport, but I wasn't competitive and I wasn't like a performance athlete by any means. So that was my like fear, I think, before I came. But it's funny because the accommodation that I was in first year and the group I was with, like we'd go and play badminton together, but we'd do it as like none of us could really play, but we kind of just did it for fun. Sort of thing. So yeah, so it was nice. But Loughborough have they have different levels of sport. So if you are interested in trying something, then it's always there for you. They have like a My Lifestyle program, which means that you can just book on and turn up and it's all free. And they have students that run it as coaches and you can give something a go. But they also have things like netball or football or kind of like more standard sports. And then aside from that, there are like a whole plethora, and they're all on the LSU website, of societies that you can do. And they have a whole section for sports, but they also have a whole section for kind of non-sports or kind of other activities. And when you get to Loughborough, there's a sports bazaar, but there's also an activities bazaar. And the idea is that you can then look around at both. And you can kind of just put your name down for whatever you fancy doing. So I'd have said as well with the sports thing, there's a lot you can do at Loughborough without being a performance athlete, because I have a couple of friends who tried AU rowing and they'd never picked up rowing ever in their life. They just fancied doing it for fun, just to try. And they're both in the AU squad. So like it is possible to do stuff whether you're interested or not. And there's more stuff if you're completely not interested in any of it.
Yeah. Oh, I'm glad to hear that they like rowing. So when I came to the university, I wouldn't touch sport with like a 10-foot pole or whatever the saying is. I just wasn't, I mean, I was interested and, I swam or did whatever when you were at school, but I had never really done any sort of competitive sport. But the best thing, or one of the best things about Loughborough, is that it's all on your doorstep if you want to try. And it doesn't hurt trying, really. But obviously, if you have absolutely no interest in sport, that's fine. But the spectrum of sport that you get at Loughborough is so vast. And like Rebecca said, you've got the sort of free My Lifestyle recreational sport offer. There's a social sport offer, which is kind of like find a group of friends and you can join a football tournament or a netball tournament that kind of runs throughout the year. Then you've got intramural sport, which is hall versus hall, which is really fun. That's honestly probably more competitive than any of the other. Even the university level sport, I reckon IMS is much more competitive. And then, of course, you've got the athletic union, which is representing Loughborough on that sort of national level. It has honestly been, I mean, I had the most amazing experience. I had never, like I said, didn't really do sport, joined the rowing club when I got here, and then ended up taking on all sorts of leadership positions within it. So I ended up chairing the club for a couple of years. And that's just because I decided to take it up in my first year. So it's one of those things that you absolutely have to take advantage, as Rebecca was talking about the bazaars that we have at the beginning of the year. If you're in a hall, they'll kind of shepherd you there anyway. They'll take everyone over and they'll make sure that you walk around and that you have a good chance to have a look. But just because Loughborough is competitive, even when it comes to the athletic union, doesn't mean that if you've never done anything before, you're not welcome there. Most of the sports within the athletic union, so within that university level competitive offer, have an offering for beginners. So people who've never even touched the sport before, picked up a bat or whatever. So it's a really brilliant experience. But as Rebecca was saying, if you don't do sport, there's so many different ways of getting involved with anything here at Loughborough. And as I've sort of said in the past, being on a campus when everything is just like within hand's reach just makes your ability to get involved in more things and try new stuff that much easier, just because it's all right here. Anyone have anything else to add to that question before we move on? No? Awesome. All right. So Yvette has put a question in saying that they've joined late, but which accommodation were you all in and what would you recommend? So I think just briefly, we did touch on the accommodations that we were in. I think the thing about Loughborough is that you'll find that whatever accommodation any Loughborough student's been in is the best accommodation on campus. I think you'll find that like it's entirely dependent on each individual's experience, and you'll still live and die by your hall before, until the day that you leave this university, because the experience that you have and the people that you meet and all the other stuff that they put on, makes that entire experience. But I was in a catered hall. I was in Elvin Richards. I really enjoyed it. It had an ensuite as well, which I really liked. But I also have friends who were in rooms that just had a hand basin and a shared bathroom and were self-catered, and they absolutely loved it. So regardless of where you end up, you'll be happy. I don't know if anyone wants to add anything.
I'd go and say when it does come to accommodation, like Ashley's right, no matter who you ask, a lot of the time, whoever you ask which accommodation would you recommend, their first answer is usually the accommodation they stayed in, no matter where they stayed. So it's a hard one to go and say when it comes to answering that. But I would go and say every accommodation does kind of have its complete own identity. It does have its own thing going on. I'd say a lot of the time I go and tell people, if you want to check out the accommodations in advance, the best thing to go and do now, everybody has Instagram and Facebook and stuff like that. Go on their Instagrams. Every student accommodation will have its own Instagram, and have a look through their photos, have a look at their committees, have a look at the summer balls, have a look at the winter balls. And it does kind of give you a little bit of an idea that no matter what accommodation you'll be in, you're going to find that kind of family vibe and community. And it's kind of what you give to your accommodation and what you take away from it more than anything else. So definitely have a look at that.
Yeah. All right, so moving on to the next question that we have. We've been asked, if you're experiencing a sport, do you just join the athletic union? So good question. Again, it's one of those things that when you come to Loughborough and you go around the sports bazaar, you'll have an opportunity to look around and see what we have. But if you already have experience in a sport, one thing that I would say, in a similar way to what Ingrid said about looking over this way, what Ingrid said about looking on Instagram and that sort of thing, all sports have their own Instagrams and have their own email addresses. So if you want to find out a little bit more about a single sport in particular, so like you say, if you have experience, you can reach out to them, like either DM them on Instagram if you have Instagram, or send them an email and just say, like, I've been playing squash for 10 years. I love it and want to do it at university. How do I do that? And it'll just sort of get you a little bit more information before you get here on campus. If it's maybe a bit of a bigger sport that has a trial process, that's also a really good way, following teams' social medias. It's a really easy and good way of accessing when the dates for trials are and that sort of thing. As a rule, it's usually LBORO and then the sport, so Elbro Sport. But like I said, if you go on the either actually on the university website under the Athletic Union Sports or the union website and look at all the sports, you'll be able to find all the contact details there. We've had a question just that I'll touch on really quickly about if the recording is available from Joe. So it will not be available as a recording, but if you do have any questions, please feel free to email us. Just reach out to us that way and someone will get back to you just to answer any questions that you have. We've got lots of lovely people who are hoping to help students who are looking at results day and clearing and that sort of thing. All right. So nope, never mind. All right, let's just pull up another question. So I don't know if anyone's done a placement year or if anyone has been interested in did either of you do a placement year? No. Okay, so I'll just answer this question anyway, because it's one that typically gets asked. So a lot of the times when you look at courses and that, you might see that a course will say with placement year or with year in industry, that sort of thing. And all that means is that those programs have the option to go out into industry and get a job for a year. The question that I've got is, do you get paid when you're on a placement year, and do you have to go to university at the same time? So I'll kind of answer that in two separate sections. Going to university at the same time is no. So you don't actually have to go into university or go to any lectures, anything like that. It's essentially a pause on your degree. You do your year, and then you come back and finish your third year after that, typically. And in terms of getting paid when you're on your placement, yeah, for the most part, you will get paid when you're on a placement. It can range depending on sort of what industry you're in or what discipline you're in, that sort of thing. But oftentimes, students will make a good amount of money on a placement year. They'll save over their placement year and then come back and they're able to have a really fun time the year following in their final year. We've asked that one already. Let's have a look. I'm just trying to find if anyone has any other
when it comes adding on to a bit about the placement situation. So if you do come to Loughborough University and you do consider doing a placement year, so when it comes to your accommodation, obviously a lot of people, when it comes to placements, it's a lot about, will I get it? Will I not get it? It's a little bit up in the air because you've got to, it's a lot of a process and you want to kind of take the weight off yourself a lot of the time when it comes to accommodation. So we always go and suggest, if you do plan on doing a placement year and it's kind of like up in the air and you don't really know if you're going to get a placement, but you really want one, apply to return into halls. So all of the halls accommodation on campus, there's 30% of all of our halls of residence at Loughborough are reserved for returning students. Returners applications open in December time and they close in about January, February. You'll get a load of notifications about like the process, how to do it, but apply to return into halls, because if you apply to return into halls and then you do get a placement, you can send in your evidence that you've accepted this placement, and it means that your accommodation gets cancelled for the next year. So it means you don't have to tie yourself into a contract with a house in a private letting agency and then go and worry that they're not going to let you out of it if you suddenly decide to go on placement last minute. So go and think about all those things kind of ahead of time. Have a look at the like returning to halls and where you kind of want to go. It's always a good idea.
Fabulous. So we're just going to touch on Nadia's question really quickly, and just say that in terms of anything when it comes to your results or your status on results day, if you just ring the contact center first thing in the morning, that's probably going to be the best thing. Like I said earlier, the phone number is scrolling across at the bottom of the screen. So make a note of that. We open at 8 a.m. So just make sure that you have your UCAS number ready when you ring us up. So just have that written down on a Post-it note or whatever, nice and close, so that you can have it when we ask you for that information. And by calling in, you'll get kind of all the up-to-date information that you can get. All right. So if somebody applies to come to Loughborough through clearing, what is it? Is there like any way that they can come or like visit the university or see anything about the university before they come? Does anyone have an answer for that?
So there is actually a way.
Wonderful.
When it comes to having a little look around, so there are plans in place usually for clearing open days. So you just need to go and check online about that. There will be updates, but check on Loughborough University website and you'll go and hear a bit about whether they'll be running an open day, whether you can come and have a look around, go and see if this is the right place for you. There are also room tours online. So if it is a case of accommodation you want to have a look at beforehand, check out all the room tours online and then have a little look at all the videos that there are. There are so many videos out there.
Yeah.
They'll all go and tell you all different things about Loughborough University, what it's like to be a student, what it's like to live in halls, what it's like to study here. Because obviously the studying is so important when you're picking your course and stuff. So have a look at all of those and then you'll kind of be able to get a better idea. But they usually run an open day. So keep your eyes on the website. They'll go and tell you a bit more about that.
Yeah, so there's typically an open house thing, they call it, on the Saturday. So that just gives you the opportunity to kind of have a wander. They run campus tours here. There's academic tables, so you can speak to people who've either done the course or maybe some admissions people as well, just so that you can get a bit of a better feel for the campus. I definitely recommend it if you can come down if you haven't visited Loughborough before and you're maybe unsure. It's such a great place, and especially getting your feet on the campus and getting a feel for what it would be like being a student here. It's a really great opportunity. So if you're free and available to come, you should definitely come. So can students, obviously Loughborough's a campus, it's quite a big campus. Can students bring cars with them to their accommodation?
So when it comes to cars on campus, we usually don't go and suggest for first years. The thing about Loughborough University being a campus university, everything is pretty much within walking distance. You will go and realize you can get from one end of the campus to the other in about like 20, 25 minutes, and that's the far end of the campus. So when it comes to your accommodation and your lectures, you're getting around in like 15 minutes mostly. And there is also a bus service. So the whole way around campus, there is a campus shuttle bus and it operates on campus for free. And then it will also go and take you into the town centre and also the train station. So if you need to get a train home, you've got a heavy suitcase, you're getting picked up from the train station back at home, but how the hell are you going to get between the campus and the train station? You can just hop on the bus and it will take you straight there. So it is all really, really easy and accessible. So you don't have to worry about that.
Amazing. Yeah, I think most people either cycle or walk. I got through my whole degree just walking. I think it's just the easiest way. You also don't have to worry about locking your bike or forgetting to lock your bike or whatever. But yeah, like Ingrid was saying, there's the campus shuttle, which is free around campus most of the day. And then, like was said as well, it literally goes straight from basically outside the doors of accommodation all the way down to the train station, which just makes going home to visit really easy. So what is, oh, sorry, I'm just having a read. How have you found, like, or I mean, I guess, Rebecca, how did you find being catered? What happens if you've got lectures over meal times, or if you're doing sport or something in the evenings? How does that work?
So normally meal times, I think they're like 8 till 10 for breakfast, normally at 12 till 2 for lunch, and I think it's 5 till 7 for dinner. But they have, I know for dinner they have kind of half an hour, like until 7:30, where you can still go in and get food. And if you're potentially going to miss lunch because lectures go over them, you can ask in advance and you can get a packed lunch instead. Like there are ways around it for sure if you're kind of very tight for time. But if I'm honest, I never actually really had that problem. Like first year is where normally your contact hours are slightly more than they are in other years, and none of my lectures ran over kind of those sorts of hours, like double, so that I couldn't get food. And if it was tight, there was still enough time because they'd still kind of be open by half an hour that I could go in and grab something. So there's ways around it. Like, and they also send out kind of questionnaires every so often to students to keep checking that those meal times are suitable for students, because they're open to changing them if more students need more flexibility, which is I think why they added the half an hour on at dinner time, because the evenings is when more students might either be at lectures or also doing kind of other activities. So they are as flexible as they can be around those sorts of things.
Yeah, we actually now, exactly as Rebecca went and said, we're always like, I do the customer services bit, so I'm the one probably handing you that survey and being like, please tell us, what do you think? Is it all okay? Because we love to go and hear your feedback and go and change things. So now we have extended breakfast hours. So if you want to get late breakfast, may be reasonable if you need to lie in on some of the days. So yeah, late breakfast is served, and then they also go and do flexible lunch service. So say if you are in your accommodation, we go and see it as like breakfast time, you eat with your dining hall with your friends. Dinner time, you do the same. And then at lunchtime, if you're, say, at the other side of campus, you don't really want to even walk the 15, 20 minutes back to the other side of campus, then you can just hop into a dining hall that's nearest to you and you can eat anywhere for lunch. So it means it kind of makes things a little bit easier. You can go and make things really convenient for yourself. So don't worry about missing meals. You never have to worry about that.
And how about if you're self-catered? Is there an option to have any of the catered food?
Yeah, there actually is. So a lot of people now, obviously, it is a case of you're trying to balance a lot when you come to uni. So even if you do get self-catered as well, a lot of the time, if your parents kind of maybe worry a little bit and they're like, oh God, what if they're not eating? It can sometimes just be helpful. They have a thing called a whole meal saver, and it's basically that it loads up meal packages to your card. And then it means that if you say want to eat, say if you've got a catered friend, you kind of want to eat with them in the evening because you can't be bothered to cook for yourself, and especially you can't be bothered to like wash up and stuff like that. It just means you can go along to the dining hall, you tap your card, and all of the meals are basically loaded onto there, and then you pay for that yourself. So yeah, you can still do that if you are self-catered, so you don't have to worry about that kind of aspect as well.
Fabulous. So going kind of circling back again to student life and what it's like kind of living by yourself, does anyone have any tips on budgeting or managing money, that sort of thing?
I think for me, it was like you don't have to budget every week once you've got used to it. I think once you learn to know how much roughly you need to spend on food and how much you want to set aside for maybe other things or like meals out or kind of socializing activities, then as long as you kind of know what your budget is, first of all, per week, and then kind of roughly how much you want to do of each, you can get to know what you'd spend. And it's never going to be as ridiculous as you think it will, because you will balance it out. And maybe if you think of kind of your freshers weeks as like something that you might be more like socially active in, then that's fine. But there might be down periods when there's exams, so it kind of all balances out. And I think trying not to stress about it as much as possible once you kind of know roughly how much you spend is probably the best advice I can give, because it doesn't overrule your university experience at all.
Yeah, I definitely say the same. Like when I was studying and at uni, it is a case of as well, you kind of come to terms with the fact that everyone's in the same boat. Everyone understands you. You're never going to have to turn around and be like, oh my gosh, I don't want to tell these people that I haven't budgeted for this kind of event to go on in the next couple of weeks. everyone's really understanding. They'll be like, no, that's fine, let's push it to a different week, when you kind of, you know that you've kind of got that expendable money to go out and do kind of excursions and different things. So kind of just coming to like terms with the fact and realizing that you are all together at uni, you are all kind of experiencing the same thing, living away for the first time together. It's kind of just a case of discussing it with them, and you'll find best mates with your flatmates a lot of the time, and the people on your course, and you'll find a way to kind of go and adapt to it. So you'll be fine.
Awesome, thank you. So, question that I'm just going to pose, but I'll give a first answer, is just about disability support at the university. So do you know what the disability support is like here at Loughborough? So I'll just kind of go speaking from my experience. So I have had support from the disability service throughout my undergraduate degree, and they still help me to a degree now that I'm still still here in my PhD. But the thing that's really important is that you disclose anything. There's a form, or at least I think there's a form. Again, if you just check on the website, they'll detail everything that you can do to kind of help yourself out. But there's a form that you fill out with the disability service before you even come to Loughborough, so that they can kind of figure out what sort of accommodations you'll need, and they can have that in place before you start. So some of the things that I had were extra time. And I also had some help in lectures with like note taking, that sort of thing. And all that was just because I made sure that they were aware of everything that I needed before I came. So like I said, there will be a form that you just have to fill out through the disability service before you get here. And that'll kind of put you on good, on good standing before you get here at Loughborough. We've had an accommodation question.
Yes,
that one?
Yeah,
so we'll pull that one.
Definitely answer that one for you.
Yeah, we'll pull that one up from Yvette. So it says, it seems like the Student Finance England payments will be coming out like a week after the time to pay for Loughborough accommodation installments. Is it okay to pay slightly later when you receive that termly payment?
Yep. So when it comes to paying for accommodation and your accommodation installments, so all accommodation here is paid in 3 installments. So it'll be like one each term. And as you may have noticed, it is a case of, it does sort of align with the student financing coming in, but it doesn't exactly align. When it comes to it, we do have a date of which you're set to pay, but it doesn't matter if you pay, say, a little bit later. If you need that little bit of time, to say, wait for your student financing to come in, you can go and pay it when your student financing comes in. It's not an issue. It's kind of like reach for the deadline that we set. If it is a little bit late, it's fine as long as it's paid.
Fabulous. Thank you. Another question that I have, still about accommodation. So sorry, Ingrid. Can friends who go to other universities come visit and stay on campus with me in my hall of accommodation?
Right. So when it comes to friends and staying on campus, so we do usually go and say it is a case of, it is a single occupancy room. So your room kind of is your own. You should be really staying in single occupancy. However, if you wanted, say, if you needed a visitor for one night, you can contact your warden. The wardens are those that will be in charge of that. Unfortunately, as it's student accommodation, we don't go and have a say on that. It is the wardens, because they or pastoral carer, they look out for the whole hall. So it would probably be a case of contacting them, asking them if it's possible, and then the warden would then go and let you know if that's okay. But if it was, say, an extended stay, say you have a family relative, the relative wants to come down and visit you for, say, a week. Your mum or dad kind of wants to just be shown around Loughborough, tell them what you're getting up to. We have a thing called the University Lodge. So the University Lodge is an on-campus accommodation, and it's short stay. And it's basically a case of you can come down, stay on campus. The relative can stay in that single occupancy room there and pay for, say, a week. And it's a really, really reduced fee because it is a campus accommodation. And it means that they can stay and come and visit you.
Yeah, awesome. Because obviously those are the rules when you're on campus. But once you, if you choose to move out into town in your kind of second or third year, you kind of have a little bit more freedom, and it's less restrictive, just because we have to ensure the health and safety of all of our students when they're here on campus. Rebecca, have you moved into town now?
I have, yeah. For my third year, I'm living.
How have you found that process?
Like fine actually. Like it's a bit of a learning curve, because obviously you've never had to find like your own accommodation out of the university like system, and like setting up broadband was like something I'd never actually had to do. So that was like an interesting learning experience, but also quite a fun one, because like it gives you a bit of a confidence boost for like the real world stuff. Because I feel like as a student you live in a bit of a bubble where you've got things kind of set up for you which allow you to settle in really nicely into the university system, and then like stepping out into like the real world is a bit of a steep learning curve if you've never done it before, but it's also really simple at the same time, and you're also with other students who are having the exact same experience as you, so you can kind of chat through it with everyone. So I found it fine. I haven't visited our house yet, so I'll be doing that in September when I go back to uni, so I'm very excited for that.
Amazing. And one of the things, if I'm not mistaken, Ingrid, that the accommodation office offers is help with leases and that sort of thing.
Yes. So when it comes to kind of like looking at off-campus accommodation, so if you want your contract read and had a look through, so obviously at the moment, everyone's kind of like, I know everybody was probably heard from their parents about gas and electric and heating and all of that stuff. So check through your contracts. If you're going to sign a private housing contract, we always go and tell people, don't rush into renting straight away. Go and ask student services. They actually offer basically a contract reading thing. So you can go and sit down with them. They'll read you through your contract. They'll tell you through all the lingo and stuff like that. And it means that when you go and sign that contract, you can be safely assured that nothing's going to kind of like mess with your accommodation plans. And it also kind of means that when it comes down to it, you'll be able to kind of like organize your own accommodation kind of off your own back. Like Rebecca went and said, you kind of find your own thing. But if you do need help, you can just come into the student accommodation centre. We're always willing to go and help and give you a little bit of advice.
Fabulous. Thank you. So we have had a question. Yeah, so we've had a question from Joe, just asking about the disability support form. So what I would recommend is that you just have a look on our website. So if you just look up like Disability Service Loughborough University, you'll be taken to the landing page of the disability service that we have here at Loughborough. There's a phone number, an email address, and I think even like a query form. So the best bet would just be to give them an email or a phone call, and they'll just kind of give you the more up-to-date information and the stuff that will help you hopefully get that answer fast and a correct one as well. There's been another question, but I'll just pause on that one really quickly.
If it's it's another accommodation question.
So Mark's asked a question. Yeah.
You don't have to live on campus. You can live on campus. We always go and say first years probably a lot easier to live on campus and live in halls of residence, just because it's quite easy to get to know people straight away. But if you do, there are loads of people that also choose that halls of residence just isn't for them, so they can live on campus as well.
Yeah, also pursuing an MBA, so that's like a master's program, so it's postgraduate. There's a lot of first years and young students on campus anyway, so you might even enjoy just being away from all the excitable students that we have here on campus anyway. So yeah, don't worry about it, about being any distance away even. Walking is great, but as well, you can just get a bike and cycle if you're worried about it taking a little bit of time. So I figure, since we're kind of coming to the end of our session today, it might be good to kind of share our top tips about maybe results day, clearing, anything like that. If anyone wants to start.
I think
I can start. Yeah, it doesn't matter.
I don't mind starting, it's okay.
Go
I think
ahead.
from like a more student point of view, I'd say like don't panic as hard as it is. I think maybe see it as an opportunity as well, because there might be other courses that you've not looked at that might be similar to the one you'd applied for, but that actually might be more suited to you. Or there might be other universities that you end up calling home but don't realise it at the time if you have happened to miss your offer. And I know a lot of students that either at other universities or at Loughborough that either missed the grades for their course that they'd applied for and ended up on a very similar course, but that maybe was slightly less sciencey than the one they'd applied for, and are actually so grateful that they missed that one. So I think it does all work out best in the long run. I think just the short term can be stressful. So trying to de-stress as much as possible, I think, is probably the best tip I can give.
Yeah, I always say just be prepared. So just start having a look while you've got time and you're a little bit less stressed, since we're kind of a week, are we a week out, something like that. And have a look at universities that you might be interested in. Start writing down their contact center numbers. You know, it's not just Loughborough that will have phone numbers like that. So just start kind of gathering all that information. And the biggest one is write down your UCAS number. I can't stress to you enough the number of times we've been rung and people are still searching for their UCAS number. Just make sure you have it. It's kind of the one thing that makes you identifiable across any university. So just make sure that you've got that when you're ready to start calling up, and you'll be fine. But as Rebecca said, like, just try not to stress too much. It all works out in the end. Wherever you'll end up, you'll definitely have an incredible experience. If it happens to be Loughborough, it'll be a really amazing experience. But that's just because we're biased and we have that opinion about this place. Ingrid, any last comments?
When it comes to accommodation, have a look at the website, do a little bit of research. The more you know, the more informed you are, and the easier it will be to kind of pick those preferences out. And remember, the key date is 22nd of August, and it's at 10 a.m. that the preferencing system opens to all clearing students. So the sooner you make that application, the better things are, really, because it means you can kind of get the ball rolling and see if you'll be coming and joining halls of residence here.
Fabulous. So as we've said a couple of times during this little live stream, if you go on Loughborough's clearing website, we've got a dedicated page that has all sorts of information and all the sort of FAQs that you could possibly have. It gives you all the information that you need, phone numbers, that sort of thing. It's a really great place to start. So hopefully you enjoyed our live stream, and we really appreciate you coming along and also asking us some questions. And yeah, good luck for results day, and hopefully we look forward to seeing you at Loughborough sometime soon.